My bedroom door was locked. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. And on the other end of the phone, I could hear footsteps. My footsteps. The ones happening right outside my door. Because whoever was calling me wasn't calling from across town. They were calling from inside my house. If stories of justice, terror, and unbelievable twists keep you up at night, smash that subscribe button right now. Hit like on this video. Drop a comment telling me if you've ever felt genuinely unsafe in your own home. And let's get into one of the most unsettling experiences I've ever heard. This one's going to stay with you. Let me paint the picture for you. I grew up in a house that never really felt like a typical family home. My dad traveled constantly for work, gone for weeks at a time. My mom, she was always out, whether it was staying at my aunt's place, hanging with friends, or just doing her own thing. She rarely slept at home. And I know how that sounds. It sounds neglectful, maybe even cold. But it wasn't like they abandoned me. It was their reality. They were busy people who valued their freedom. And honestly, they had me, realized how much that freedom meant to them, and never had another kid. I'm an only child, and yeah, that stings more now as an adult than it did back then. But when I was 16, 17, 18 years old, I loved it. I had this massive house all to myself most nights. No parents hovering over my shoulder, no siblings invading my space. I could have friends over whenever I wanted. We'd game until 3 a.m. I could talk to girls on the phone without feeling embarrassed. It felt like I had my own apartment without paying rent. Total freedom. By the time I turned 19 and started going to a nearby college, nothing changed. If anything, my parents were around even less. My dad's work trips got longer. My mom stayed at my aunt's more often. I was just holding down the fort at home. And because I'd been living like this for years, I knew that house inside and out. Every creak, every groan, every sound the floorboards made when you stepped in certain spots. It was an older house, pretty big, with character. And because I knew it so well, I never got spooked by random noises. I could tell the difference between the house settling and something actually wrong. This particular night, I knew for certain I was going to be alone. My dad was out of town on business, and my mom had been talking all week about staying at my aunt's because they had some family event early the next morning. She didn't want to drive back late. I remember her exact words, "It's just you tonight." And I remember my exact response, "You don't even have to tell me that anymore." So I did what I always did. Made myself some food, watched TV downstairs, scrolled through my phone. Around 11 o'clock, I headed upstairs to my room at the end of the hallway. My room was the last door on the left. At the top of the stairs, there was a small landing, and to the right was my parents' bedroom. Further down the hall was the bathroom, the linen closet, and then my door. I kept my door open that night. My parents had always told me to keep doors open when I was home alone. It was a whole stay alert, listen for intruders thing. But honestly, I liked it. I liked hearing the house, the background hum of the TV downstairs, the familiar sounds. It made being alone feel less intense. I got into bed, watched some YouTube videos on my laptop for a while, and eventually started feeling tired. I closed my laptop, turned off the light, and just laid there scrolling on my phone. I'd say about an hour passed, maybe a little more, and then my phone rang. The screen lit up. No caller ID. I'd never gotten a no caller ID call before, not once. And getting one at almost midnight? That felt sketchy as hell. So I ignored it, let it ring out. But then it rang again. Immediately. Same thing. No caller ID. That's what made me answer. I figured if someone was calling twice in a row, it might actually be important. Maybe an emergency. Plus, it's just a phone call, right? Worst case, I hang up. So I picked up, and at first, nothing, just silence. I started getting annoyed, thinking it was one of those scam calls that just checks if your number's active so they can add you to some call center list. But then I heard something, faint, but there. It took my brain a second to process what it was. It sounded like a TV playing in the background. And here's the thing, I could also hear my TV downstairs. I'd left it on in the living room earlier, just low volume as background noise. So hearing TV audio on the phone made my stomach drop. I said hello again. No response, just the sound of a TV. And then I realized something that made me sit straight up in bed. The TV noise I was hearing through the phone wasn't random. It wasn't just some show playing on someone else's TV. It was synced, perfectly synced. The exact same audio, the exact same moments, no delay. Like whoever was on the other end of the phone could hear my TV in real time, which would only make sense if they were inside my house, downstairs. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was a friend outside one of the windows trying to mess with me. Maybe the call was glitching and picking up my own audio somehow. But the more I listened, the more I knew. That didn't make sense. This sounded like someone was standing in my living room, holding a phone, listening to my TV while calling me. I got up, walked to my bedroom door, and yeah, I was sure now. The audio on the phone was matching the TV downstairs. In hindsight, this was stupid, but I yelled out, "Who's down there?" Because part of me still thought maybe it's a prank. Maybe it's my dad or my uncle testing me, seeing how I'd react to a home invasion scenario. The line went dead. They hung up. My mouth went completely dry. I couldn't call the number back. It was anonymous. I stepped out into the hallway and looked down the stairs. I could still hear the TV. And then I heard it. A creak. The unmistakable sound of the wooden floor downstairs cracking under the weight of a person. And then someone cleared their throat. That's when everything became real. I went back into my room, closed the door, locked it. My hands were shaking. I called my dad. No answer. Called again. Again. He was probably already asleep. So I called my Uncle T. He picked up on the second ring. I could tell he'd been in bed. He asked why I was calling, and I prefaced it by saying, "This might sound crazy." And then I asked if he was downstairs in my house. His exact response, "Steve, what the hell are you talking about?" I explained, and he told me that kind of test sounded like something his brother, my dad, would do. But while we were talking, my phone started vibrating. I looked at the screen. No caller ID. I begged my uncle to stay on the line, told him I was putting him on hold to answer the other call. He said okay. I picked up, said hello, silence again. But this time, I didn't hear the TV. Instead, I heard footsteps, and they were moving. And those footsteps matched the footsteps I suddenly started hearing outside my bedroom. My doorknob jiggled. Someone tried pushing the door. Thank God it was an old, heavy door with a solid lock. The sound was syncing perfectly with what I was hearing on the phone. Whoever was on the other side knocked. I had the sudden idea to merge the calls. I did, and I yelled into the phone for my uncle. "It's not my dad! Get here now! Whoever's in the house is on the phone with us!" My uncle started yelling into the phone. "I'm coming, you cocksucker! I'm on my way!" The no-caller ID caller hung up. I heard footsteps move away from my door. Quickly. My uncle told me to stay in the room. He was coming. He lived in the same town. But those 7 minutes felt like 5 years. When I finally heard my uncle's voice screaming downstairs, I rushed out and down to him. We called the cops together. We searched the house for anything stolen. The TV was still on. And then we found it, the kitchen window, fully open, wide enough for someone to crawl through. The cops arrived. They searched the whole house with us trailing behind them. Whoever had been inside was gone. But they asked to see the no-caller ID calls in my recent calls. I showed them. One of the officers told me that even though it says no caller ID, they can sometimes request records and trace where it came from. It could take a few days, but they'd get back to us. My uncle stayed over that night. We kept every light in the house on.
A few days later, the officer called me back. The number had been traced, and it was someone I actually knew. An old acquaintance from high school. Not a friend, not an enemy, just someone who had my number. I hadn't seen him in years. The cops asked if I wanted to come with them to question him. My uncle and I went. When the guy's dad answered the door and saw the police, he called his son down immediately, and I saw it in the guy's face. He was nervous. The officer asked him straight up if he made those calls. He said no, immediately. Then he said his phone had been stolen a few days ago, lost it at a party, never got it back. The cop asked why he didn't report it. He just shrugged, said he was getting a new one anyway. The cop said they'd follow up if needed, and that was it. His dad just stood there the whole time, said nothing. There was no big gotcha moment, no arrest, nothing. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about it. That nervous look on his face. Was it guilt? Or just the natural reaction anyone would have when cops show up at your door? If his phone really was stolen, that means someone took it specifically to call me, to break into my house, to stand outside my bedroom door.
And that's scarier than if it was him. Sometimes the scariest part of revenge isn't what happens, it's what doesn't. It's the questions that never get answered, the justice that never arrives. Because whoever was in my house that night, they're still out there. If this story gave you chills, do me a favor, hit that like button, drop a comment telling me your theory on who was really in that house, and subscribe because stories like this, they're just getting started. Thanks for listening. Stay safe out there.